Thank you, Mr. Sarnowski. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Steve Bennett. Hopefully you're here joining for the snowshoeing coaches pre games information session. Again, the purpose of this meeting is knowing that we're changing locations to give some very basic overview and just big picture items for the day. Talk a little bit about some of the snowshoeing specifics, but as you can see in this session and on this slide, it's tentative or tentative. Everything that you see tonight is tentative. We continue to work with WISP and our management teams and sports committees, et cetera, to dial in some of the operations. So we do have a hard stop as well, about 5 till 7, because we do have a Alpine coaches webinar session immediately following. So with that said, again, thank you guys all for joining us, and we'll go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat function, and we'll get to those as appropriate. And this session is designed to get feedback and answer some questions you may have. We may not have all the answers, but again, this is kind of an input back and forth session, if you will. If you have a question, again, you can type it in chat, or at the end, we'll breeze through some of this information and then open it up for some communication dialogue. So with that being said, kind of gave you the lowdown of what this webinar session is for. And again, it's basically just to highlight some things, give you kind of a basic lay of the land, kind of what's expected, what we're working on. And as we get closer, again, we'll have other sessions and the pre-competition webinar, et cetera. So again, just wanted to give you guys a kind of general lay of the land. So here's some things we'll talk about tonight. We'll go over some maps of the venue layout, things of that nature, a general schedule for the games, opening ceremony information. Mike will talk on housing and registration and the meals, family reception, and we'll go into the social and the dance, miscellaneous pieces of information. And then I'll turn it over to Ryan to go over some snowshoeing specific information, and Ron can certainly chime in on any of that information, and then let you know our additional resources, such as our coaches resource page and other things that are always available to everyone. So here's the basic map. Thanks, Mike, for putting this together. So you see, you come out I-70, head on out, you come down, and it's basically in the far west point of Maryland, right on the border there of West Virginia. So that's the basic route that most people will take. And this is kind of a lay down. This is WISP Resort here. So you'll come down Marsh Road, pull in here, and this takes you to all the parking areas on site there at WISP. This is the basic main hotel lodge area. This is the McHenry House, or the McHenry Lodge, where housing and the opening meals and the opening ceremony will take place. So again, very basic. And again, we will have this slide deck sent to you guys, as well as posted on our coaches resource page, so that you can access it at your convenience. So here's kind of more of a zoomed in area of WISP Resort. So again, this is the hotel area. This is a portion of the inn. Walking through this area, you'll go down into the McHenry Lodge, where the opening ceremony and meals will be. And again, you have the parking at these different locations. These are some yurts that we will be using portions of these 2 yurts for the most part for snowshoeing purposes on Monday and Tuesday when we get into finals. But the snowshoeing competition area will be up this out and into this field here. So this right here is where the kids learning session is for new skiers and things of that nature. That will be operational during Sunday. So we'll mark the field and the field of play and set up the tents and everything leading into the event. Again, just more of a zoom in location. This again, the McHenry Lodge, you look here, looking out this way, if you can see my cursor, this is looking up towards the mountain and the slopes. Very, very beautiful, big A-frame, glass frame. There is some outside seating and decking and stuff on this side of the resort as well. So as a general schedule, again, you'll see.
Actually, Steve, could you back up and just point out the control center also in the upper left corner with the first floor that has some of the rooms that may have relevance?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so in the main lodge, this is the main point of check-in and registration, where you'll get your keys and all that information. And then our control center will, as noted here, will be in the Barnes room. We'll have some designated signage directing you to those. We'll also have use for different operational purposes, some other meetings in rooms in the main hotel area, the Morris room, the Crawford room, and some other things. But yeah, you'll basically come in through this main lot here, the main entrance into the hotel, and that's where Jane will meet you guys for your keys and checking in. So the general schedule, again, you'll see the word tentative all over the place. Can't stress that enough. Nothing's in stone. This is just kind of as we gear up for a large event like this. We always say everything's tentative until the day after the event. That's when everything's final. So just kind of gives you a basic. So Sunday, again, that's when the time trials will be for both snowshoeing and alpine. But delegations will check in that morning, get your keys, get your credentials, and give some basic information for the winter games. That's our first session will be, as far as meals go, will be dinner that evening. And then we'll roll right into the opening ceremony. After dinner, we'll do a quick turnover of the room and set up for the opening ceremony on Sunday night, the 26th of February. Rolling into Monday, the 27th, will be our first day of finals. Breakfast will be in that McHenry Lodge, as I indicated, where the opening ceremonies and meals will take place. Go into competition, have a break for lunch. All lunch will be in that McHenry Lodge. So for snowshoeing, it will be a walk over to the McHenry Lodge. Same for alpine. When they get off the slopes, it'll be a walk over to the McHenry Lodge for lunch, and then head back out according to the competition schedules for the rest of the day. Dinner will also be, again, all meals will be in the McHenry Lodge. So tentatively scheduled there from 5:30 to 7, pending on Monday night. Then we'll roll into the dance and the social hour, or 2 hours, if you will, on Monday night. Have good festivities and good engagement and interaction there. Tuesday, last day of finals and awards and everything. Breakfast, same time. Competition, basically same time, although ending a little sooner on Tuesday, pending any unforeseen challenges we may have. And then obviously everyone will head back home and collect all their awards, pack up, and head back to wherever you reside on Tuesday after the finals. The opening ceremony, again, as we mentioned, will be on Sunday night, the 26th, on the McHenry Lodge. Again, it's the same location of meals. We think we have enough personnel and manpower. The one thing I will say on Sunday night, from dinner going into the opening ceremony, we really will stress this as we get closer to the games, but get in, get your dinner, and vacate so that other people can come in, as we will be turning over that room. So just be mindful of that. For the parade of athletes, for the opening ceremony, we'll have a representative parade, as we have done in previous events. So there'll be 2 athletes, or maybe an athlete and a unified partner and a coach, to represent and carry in the banner recognizing the county or area program. So we'll work with the heads of delegation. If you have any recommendations, make sure you share those with your head of delegation or your county director, so that we can represent both sports, not all snowshoeing. So again, just a heads up there. All the other delegation members from your teams will be seated in the aisles. You'll see in a diagram that Anna McCauley has put together later in the slide deck, which is right here. So this is again a tentative layout. We continue to tweak as need be. This stage is where the MCs and honored guests will be seated. This stage, if you remember where I said the McHenry Lodge was, this is looking out towards the slopes. So this is that big A-frame, beautiful outlook on the slopes. We'll have delegation seating with an aisle in between, so all delegations will be seated in these areas. The torch will come in from a back entrance of the lodge, walk in and come down the area and do some handoffs here and there, and then culminate outside with the lighting of the cauldron, which right now we're anticipating to be right outside of those windows, pending any fire marshal issues or anything else. That's the plan for now. The food court, that's kind of in the back of the McHenry Lodge. That's where the lines where you will go in to pick up your meals, then come back in and sit in this general area for all the dining, breakfast, lunch, and dinner that are provided. And then those who get selected for walking in and representing your team will be back in the back corner meeting with Anna and the rest of the opening ceremonies team to get dialed in and make sure we have everybody appropriate to start the ceremony.
Hey, Steve, just one correction on that. The McHenry room continues for a good amount of space below that pipe and drape, and we will have a lot of the dining tables there. There will be some portion, though, that'll be in the area, as well as our actual serving line, where you see the torch entrance and the red arrow and the blue arrow. Those will have to be broken down, and such there. So, but yeah, there will be. We're not tearing down the whole place.
Right. Yeah. Good point. And then also, as you mentioned, Mike, the typical lines to go into the general public food area and everything like that, we will have some buffet style tables set up back in the back wall, if you will, of McHenry Lodge for delegation meals. At times there may be some families and spectators who are able to purchase meals, but will be directed to another location outside of the McHenry Lodge for meals as far as seating goes. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mike to address some registration and some other information.
Okay, yeah. Don't want to go a whole lot into this because we've gone through it with the gone through it with the area directors and such, and it's not the focus, but I know we had some questions on this. So there's a registration fee for each person in the delegation. You can see that there. The $195 is for those where they're using the housing provided by Special Olympics Maryland. If delegation or an individual is not going to use the housing, the fee is $120. And then in that next little group, you can see, regardless of which status they have, housing from SOMD or housing on their own, they get the same lifts and rentals that they need for their particular sport. If they're in snowshoeing, doesn't need lifts, obviously, or rentals, but they'll get their meals from Sunday dinner through lunch on Tuesday. They'll have access to the social activities and so on. Also note, now this is something your GM, the person who handles your GMS or your computer work, is handling this, not you as an individual coach, but those are the individual different roles that they can have, assuming that they have met the certification requirements for those and all the forms and such. Anybody who is designated as a coach, you must have your current sport certification up to date in order to be credentialed as a coach. If you are registered or submitted as a coach, but you do not have that up to date, we're going to convert your role to a volunteer. And hopefully that doesn't mean that there's no head coach for a particular county for a particular sport, because that means you won't be able to file any protest. And as always, that last paragraph there, you can always look up your sports certification on the coach resource page. And if you're not sure how to get to that, at the very end of the deck, there's a link to that. But then also with registration, again, your folks are handling this, but the first thing is getting any remaining missing forms need to be in by the 26th. We've extended that deadline for here. So, but just getting them in should not be a huge issue. Yeah, it's the same process we've had for well, at least 5 years, actually longer than that. You have to have your your events selected by February and submitted into GMS by February 6th. No entry scores are required, obviously, because we'll have time trials. You will be able to adjust your athletes and unified partners if they're affected there. You will be able to adjust those following time trials on Sunday for either sport. But we do need to know what events they're in so we can schedule and get the time trials done. Anybody who is not listed for a time trial will, a competitor, I'm sorry, who's not listed for a time trial will be removed from the delegation as well. And then as a reminder, in order to compete, at least for an award, they need to successfully complete their time trial on Sunday, and then they can move on. We do allow to compete for a participation award, anybody who DQ'd in the time trials. So, and we'll touch on the time trials in the individual sports section. And then for the on-site registration, our plan is to have in the lobby was where you'll check in the main hotel, the tower portion of the hotel. You'll have 3 packets potentially for each delegation. If it's 3, if they have both sports, there'll be a packet that's specifically for each head coach, and that'll have your information and materials that you need for the time trial. So bibs, anything else from that. And then a packet for your overall delegation that the header delegation will get. That'll have any information on housing, meals, so on down the line. And then the head coach can pick up, or I'm sorry, the head of delegation can pick up all the packets if they want, or if they've arranged it with their head coach to pick up one of the packets, the packet that's relevant for them, they can do that. That's within your delegation and such, just so that you can keep things straight. As far as housing goes, Jane Dunn will be reaching out to folks within the next couple days, to your head of delegation or whoever is the main contact for your program. We will be having, as we have had for quite some time, a ratio of 3 to 1, where 3 athletes or 1 supervisory person for every 3 athletes. There's more details on that. I'm not going to go into that. But for any of the delegations that are utilizing Special Olympics Maryland stuff, head of delegation doesn't count in that. Unified partners don't count in that. There's all sorts of nuances, but that's not so much the purpose for tonight. I will say that we have Special Olympics Maryland has all the hotel rooms and suites at WISP reserved. So if anyone is looking to if you for whatever reason want to do housing on your own, there are plenty of other properties there in that area. I would imagine on a Sunday or a Monday, it should not be terribly difficult there. So we will have delegation check-in on Sunday, typically in the afternoon, or I'm sorry, you'll check in for your housing on Sunday afternoon and check out on Tuesday mid to late morning. We are working with WISP to see if we can have a couple of rooms for each delegation, or if the delegations are small, we may cluster a couple of them together so that you can have changing rooms and have them available early on Sunday and then late, it says late on Monday, actually late on Tuesday. Sorry about that. That's not definite, but that's what we're trying to do so that we don't have to worry about. We want to avoid, if we can, having everybody haul all their luggage down to one of the conference rooms and then sort all through that there. It's just a lot of extra work. But if we can work that out so that you can hold on to a couple of your hotel rooms and get a couple of them early, that would be great. We'll say that unlike in previous years where when we stayed utilizing Whitetail, there are different room configurations, and some rooms handle 2 people, some rooms handle 3 people. Some are Murphy beds, some are double queens or whatever. So Jane will go over all that with your delegation leader. And I think, is there one more from me, Steve?
Maybe, but I just want to emphasize Mike's point that Special Olympics Maryland not only has reserved all the hotel rooms on WISP property, but with that being said, they have worked with us that the only person who will be allowed to book rooms is Jane Dunn. So I only mention that because we have, at least I have had several families call and say, we're making our own reservations. We called WISP, but they won't take our reservation. We told them we're with Special Olympics Maryland. So just, if you get that information from a family member, whatever, just know that if they're making their own room reservations, they won't be allowed to do it at WISP. So just want to avoid any frustration or confusion there.
Yeah. At least for Sunday night and Monday night. Saturday, they can do what they need to do. Then quickly, as far as meals, all the delegation meals will be in McHenry Lodge. We likely will be utilizing meal shifts for at least some of the meals to avoid long lines. Very likely need to do that on Sunday, just because it seems like Sunday night, wherever we are, the line gets horrendous. Not guaranteeing it'll reduce it or eliminate it, but it has a higher likelihood there. Also, as Steve mentioned, on Sunday, we may need to have people leave at a certain point so we can turn the room or the portion of the room. As was indicated when we were looking at that diagram for opening ceremonies, for meals, we'll have designated buffet tables. We will not be going, this is the plan right now, we will not be going through the food court. Our folks will be going through a designated, even for lunch, we'll be going through a designated buffet to get what our lunches or our dinners for that. But it will be while there are folks out in the general public there, and as Steve said, they can go through the food court, but they'll have to be, the plan is that WISP will have them seated somewhere else. So family members, if they're looking for meals or whatever, will be able to do that. And actually, did I blow past that? Well, anyhow, I think I did touch on it, but anyhow, at this point, we don't have any special arrangements made for non-delegation members to purchase meals at WISP or Winter Games other than lunch. So not for dinner and not for breakfast. Again, that's non-delegation members. If you're a delegation member and you're just not staying at WISP, that those meals are covered with your registration fee. There are ample places to go and get something to eat in that area. Some are very, very good too. So family members should not really have any significant difficulty getting something to eat. And I think that's
thanks,
it.
Mike.
Oh, we do have a hand up from Anna.
Yep, I just saw that. Anna.
Yep.
Thank you. I just wanted to make just a quick comment about housing. Is that there will be no room turnovers.
Oh, good point. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah. So what that means is WISP has indicated that they are somewhat short-staffed. So it's recommended that if you could let everyone know there will be no room service, number one, which I'm not sure is ever an option, but there's no turnover of the rooms, meaning making of the beds, cleaning or picking up towels, all that. So it's highly recommended to hang your towels. If there is a need, the front desk will have some towels available, but you'll have to go down to pick those up yourself. So more information to come on that, but yeah, great point, Anna. We didn't put that in.
Thank you very much, Anna.
Thanks.
Okay.
So family reception, there won't be necessarily a family hospitality area during the games, but one of the things that we're bringing back is the family reception that will be in the lower level of the McHenry Lodge room areas, and that will be the evening of Monday during the dance. And that's primarily for family members only. It's not for athletes and partners unless you are a parent, but it's primarily designated for family members, parents, guardians, that type of thing. We have had a crash party in the past with athletes going down and everything else. It's kind of a time for the families to talk about things and just get to know each other and have some relaxation while all the athletes and partners are up hanging out and partying at the dance. With that being said, again, Monday night will be the dance. The theme of the dance is the Oscars. So we're looking to have, kind of a glamour, if you will, with maybe a red carpet. People can walk in, get their pictures taken and that type of stuff. But it should be a very cool atmosphere there in the McHenry Lodge. Just some miscellaneous items. There is a pool and a workout facility also at WISP. The swimming pool will not be available during the winter games for any of our contingents and participants, starting on Sunday through Tuesday. Also in regards to medical, during the competition, out on the slopes and everything, obviously we'll be using the ski patrol. but we will also have medical on site from the Winter Games perspective and the Special Olympics perspective, not only during the day, but also overnight. So you can, report those to the control center. We'll also provide emergency phone numbers for overnight once we get closer to the games. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to skip through the Alpine section here and go straight into snowshoeing. Again, these slides are available if you're interested in some of the Alpine information. We'll put this on the coach's resource page. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to hit on some snowshoeing specific information, and Ron as well. Ryan?
Thank you, Steve. Thank you to everybody for being on tonight. There is one piece of information on here that is not tentative, and that is the information box on the right that says everything is tentative. So we have our agenda in front of you. We'll go over a map of layout of snowshoeing specifically, along with our course layout, which is included in that. We'll go through a basic schedule, which is similar to what we've used in years past, with time trials being on a separate day, which will also be something we cover. We'll go into staging. We'll talk about our 2 coaches meetings that are planning to take place, go over awards, and then some miscellaneous pieces to conclude. So starting on the right here, you can see that arrow going to the right, and that's actually a little bit behind. It'll go to the hotel. There's also a parking lot that is located right behind those yurts, which is what those little circles are. There's probably 8 or 9 of those in total, but there's 2 of them that we'll be using. So the 2 that are labeled, there's a snowshoe operations yurt there. That'll be where our control center will be located. And then we also, next to it, which we'll touch on a little bit more here, is the awards yurt. Again, we may have limited access to those on Sunday, but those will be fully operational on Monday and Tuesday. Going over, after you walk over to the staging / warming tent, that will be our pre-staging tent, or pre-staging tent, however you want to view that. And from there, athletes will then continue on to the final staging tent, which will be located near the start line. So there's a few little pieces that have to be finalized to ensure that we can place those tents where we would like to, but that's what we're thinking currently. You can then see the competition area. That tent that's there, we will not be using that. But that is located at the venue. Spectators will be kind of marked off. It's not due to social distancing or whatever, but it's just to keep them in an area where they can view the competition from a safe distance, but it'll be a great viewing area. So again, time trials will be the day before our 2 competition days. It'll be Sunday, February 26th. Don't need to dig into this too much. You can just see that setup will be in the morning. And then we will open it up for warm-ups in the afternoon, probably 3 hours roughly of time trials. We will conclude time trials and then have a coaches meeting, which we intend to have in one of those tents, keep it nice and easy for everybody. And from there, we will continue on to the rest of the activities later in the night. So Monday, our first day of competition. So half the races will occur on Monday, the 27th, and then half will be made on Tuesday. But here you can see the order that we currently plan. And again, these times will greatly depend on how many athletes we have in each race, whether we even have athletes in some of these races. And then we will again have a coaches meeting at the end of the day. So on Tuesday, we'll have the rest of the events that we did not have the day before. We will be starting early. Currently, there's not a open warm-up time here. I will talk to Ron about that. I would like to offer that on Tuesday also, but as you can see, we will be starting bright and early on Tuesday, just so we can conclude and get everybody home safely.
Ryan, you may touch on this here, but we had 2 questions coming in related to the pre-stage tent. Whether there's enough seating based on the size of the tent, but also are there enough chairs for all the athletes, or is it just folks who are coming up for their competition opportunities? And then also related to that, where is there a designated location for delegations to sit? Is that the pre-staging tent, or is I guess similar or equivalent to some of the warming areas that we've had in the past.
Yeah, and I'll hit on that, right? Because I was just finalizing some of the orders with our vendors today. So the pre-staging tent, if you will, is about a 20 by 30. We're looking to have about 75 to 80 chairs in there. You're more than welcome to bring your own chairs, but there should be plenty of room in both of those tents for the time trials. When we get into the finals, the pre-staging is really going to be designated for the upcoming races, moving into the final staging. Then that one of those yurts where we showed where the awards and the ops, there'll be room to hang out in there on Monday and Tuesday during the finals. Those tents will be heated. But again, as we finally look to finalize that, I would not plan on having your whole delegation hanging out in those tents on Monday and Tuesday for finals.
And Steve, could you, when you say a 20 by 30, just because folks who don't deal with tents, is that like roughly the size of the lunch tent from last year? For
Yeah,
those
that we had at Whitetail. Yeah, very comparable to that size. Yeah.
Okay. So with the staging process, again, this will be covered more in the pre-competition webinar, but the coaches will bring the athletes and partners to the pre-staging tent. The staging volunteer escorts the competitors from the pre-staging tent to the final staging tent. And then at that time, a volunteer will take them to the start line. After each race, the athletes should remove their snowshoes, and the coaches will escort or any other delegation member to the awards check-in area. But we do want to make sure that time is allowed between races. So if you are going to have your athlete awarded after their race, please just make sure after checking with the schedule that there's enough time to get them back for their race. So we talked about our coaches meetings. We'll just go over some updates on the day. Also, if you'd like to provide input at that time, we of course do a survey at the end of the year too. But with 2 competition days, it might be, well, whatever. It might be good to hear your input. I would like to hear it. We'll also provide you with some other information pertaining to the next day. So the first one will be happening on Sunday. That'll happen in the tent after time trials. And then the other one on Monday will be in the yurt after the first day of competition.
And I think I'm unmuted. Yeah, the reason for that, everyone, again, is we don't have full use of the yurts on Sunday. So after time trials, we'll have that brief coaches meeting, as Ryan indicated. Then when we have use of the yurts after the awards and stuff for the day, you'll have your coaches briefing that evening. So.
And actually, Steve, may want to note as well that at least one of the yurts, I think a couple, but one is set up for the public for refreshments and such, which spectators at least.
Yeah, it's an additional yurt, not the 2 that we had indicated.
Right,
on the
exactly.
maps. Yeah, exactly. There's another one. It's one that's right adjacent to the 2 that we were talking about in the maps earlier that are labeled. That is has refreshments, has beverages, has some seating in there. Yeah. And everything like that. So not only in the 2 yurts we indicated where Monday and Tuesday where you could hang out, there is that other cafeteria type area. And then you also, which we didn't mention, I can't remember exactly if it's a yurt or there's a long permanent structure there that also has restrooms available. So the restrooms are right there by the yurts. So just wanted to make you aware of that as well. Back to you, Ryan.
And John did ask where awards will be posted. We will cover that in the miscellaneous slide, but we do have another site visit coming up here, and that will be one of the pieces that I look at currently, though, on this slide. It is listed as TBD, but we will update you once we have more information on that. Thanks, John. With the Snowshoeing Awards will be presented after each division finishes. It's expected to be located in the yurt. John asked how big those yurts are. They can probably fit 40-ish, 50 people or so.
At least, yeah, they're pretty big, John. Yeah. I would say, depending on the configuration, you can at least fit 100 people in there. But it'll be limited. We'll do some reconfigurations of those yurts for the ops room with be pipe and draped off, and then for the awards area for spectators and things of that nature.
Yeah, if folks want to get a sense of that, by the way, you can go to the WISP website. They have under the one of the things, they have mountain cams, and the one, if you look at the main one, it comes over and it shows you the yurts, and you can usually see somebody walking by them. They're huge. If anybody's thinking or comparing it to the yurt that was at, or that is at Whitetail for the two top program, they're easily twice the size, maybe 3 times the size of that yurt. They are, it's hard to believe they're calling them a temporary structure because they're pretty permanent and they are freaking huge. So
yeah, they're high ceilings and rafters and everything. I mean, it's definitely substantial. I'd say 3 to 4 times the two tops yurt that you see over at Whitetail, at least. Yeah.
All right, so with the awards, please make sure that the athletes' snowshoes are off before going into the yurts. We'll talk about more about where they can place those in a designated area for that in the future. If attending an award ceremony for any given race will make an athlete late for the next event, as we said, please keep them at the competition area or over at the pre-staging area, so they're not missing their race. We talked about a volunteer being with the athlete over at awards, making sure they're where they need to be at the appropriate time, and also cheering them on and acknowledging them for all their hard work and efforts that day. Coaches and delegation volunteers are not permitted in the award staging area unless asked to come in by our management team or the awards director on site. Some miscellaneous but very important pieces also that I want to include. Athletes can compete in up to 3 events plus 1 relay each day. Coaches have the opportunity to adjust the athletes' events up until the end of time trials. If they're going to do that, and again, that needs to come from the head coach, HOD, or area director, please notify Ron, and we can talk about making that adjustment. Results, as we talked to with John's questions, is TBD. I will update you on that. Be sure to stop at the Snowshoeing Control Center each day to see if there's any updates for the next day. Parking is available in the main lot, as we touched on earlier. Spectators and delegation members should plan to bring folding chairs. We will not be providing chairs for the outlining of that course area where spectators are allowed. So please pass that on so they're not standing for the day.
And
Yeah.
Ryan, 2 quick things on this. One, as far as changing events with time trials, and we certainly encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity, but just keep in mind your athletes, and if it's a relay, your unified partners potentially must have completed the proper time trial for the event that they're going into. If they didn't do it, we can't put them in. And then one other note, the parking in the main lot, that's going to be on Sunday, going to be a little difficult just because it's going to have a lot of public there. Monday and Tuesday, it should be a breeze there.
And the other thing I'll say, again, as we say, everything's tentative. John, to your question, most likely the results will be posted in the yurt and the main ops going into the awards, just because that's where ops and printers and everything will be set up. So tentative plan is to have those posted in one of those yurts. So here again is just some general information. We have some additional input sessions, information sharing, etc. So again, we have the 2 tonight, snowshoeing and alpine tonight. We have a head of delegation one next week. Then another one. We have the pre-competition ones for alpine and snowshoeing set. Hopefully this isn't news to you. And again, as we continue to update our website and our coaches resource page, but you should have the links already, but if not, they're provided here for you. And then again, some other brief sessions leading into the games with the pre-comps, and then with another head of delegation webinar, and then one for athletes and families to inform them of the updates we have between now and those sessions. And again, as we indicated, here are the links to the coaches resource page. And just as a reminder, these are open to general public. It's not, I mean, it's designed for coaches. I was going to say it's not special for coaches. It's designed for coaches, but there's no special code or anything hopefully you guys have all checked those out in some previous coaching experience or a previous event last year. So again, just continue to check those. Most of your questions can be answered within the slide deck we provide, or other information that'll be posted on those links.
And then with this, we have a few minutes here, so I've been taking notes as well, just some of the feedback that we've gotten in the course of this and questions and such. But we want to hear any other concerns, questions, suggestions. But this wasn't explicitly stated, but seeing is there a way that we can allow for families to be able to eat at least lunch portion with the athletes, at least seated there, even if they have to purchase it through the line. And well, there may be a way that we can handle that and just have the non-Special Olympics public sit elsewhere. I think a lot of that has to do with the available space. Some concerns or some looking for some alternatives in terms of the overflow or potential overflow from the pre-staging tent, and where delegations can congregate that are protected spaces. I think that's potentially a concern on Sunday. Identifying a results posting location, and then note that John Bagaski, in this case, noted in the deck there about making sure that if we can, to allow between events and I don't think this is so much of an issue, but Ron or Ryan, correct me, with delegations when the athletes and such when they're not competing, that they can, the family members can interact with the rest of the delegations. I don't think we're trying to necessarily exclude that. It's just having spaces where the spectators can go and see around the perimeter was more, but please correct me if that. And then John, yeah, if the tent is too tight, doing that within a tent may be a challenge there, but that's something we can effort. That's why we're looking at it here, and we can see what some options may be. There's also, if there's a big gap, keep in mind, you're very close to the hotel itself. So, I mean, literally it's what Ryan or actually Ron, you all were there too. It's what, 2-minute walk to the front door of the hotel, maybe 3, if that much.
Yeah, it's
so
really,
if there's a gap in your schedule, people can go right inside. In fact, that was one of the really nice things for years when we were at WISP previously, is that you can go inside to the hotel. So but Ron, you were starting to say something there.
no, I was just agreeing with you, Mike, that it's real easy to get back to the hotel. If you've got, an hour and a half before an athlete's next race, you can go back with a family member or somebody in delegation and get back in time. That should be no issue at all.
And yes, and John made the note there in the being slope side, there's no hotel, there's no commute. We save an hour or more in the day. Not actually, I think it's more than an hour, not just the travel time, but the packing up and then unpacking on site and then back forth. So yeah, the slope side accommodations makes a real difference, and we're looking forward to that. But anyhow, I just summarized the notes that I had down, and I could have missed something. But any other suggestions, any other thoughts of things we should consider? This is been 12 years since we've been there, and that's one of the primary purposes of us having this. We have 5-6 weeks, and not that we could do everything that people suggest, but we're in a much better position right now to make any adjustment or whatever, or at least consider it, compared to at the pre-competition webinar, which is like a week out.
Yeah, as if there are any questions, just this slide deck, hopefully everyone has it, but any questions, this is your people to go to for questions for Winter Games. Obviously, Ryan's the contact for snowshoeing. But yeah, I'll just emphasize from John Bagaski's point and others, specifically on Monday and Tuesday during the finals, that cafeteria area, which is another big yurt, should be open for just hanging out and that kind of stuff. You can go to awards and then hang out over there, that kind of stuff. So And then the 20 by 30 tent that we were talking about for the pre-staging, the one difference that we have there from the whitetail tent is the whitetail tent also had a bunch of tables set up for dining, which will not be the case for this tent. This will be strictly chairs. So, you know, I may look at re-looking at the 20 by 30, maybe a 30 by 30, and again adding some more chairs in there. But yeah, it should be very conducive. But if we don't have any other questions, again, the slide
Or
deck-
suggestions, recommendations too. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, don't hesitate to send those to Ryan. He can talk with Ron and Trish and the other snowshoeing people as well as other management. But we really do appreciate everyone taking the time. We know we don't have all the answers, but we hope that you found this informative and at least give you some basic ideas of what to expect that you can share with your athletes, other coaches, family members, etc. So we really do value your input, your suggestions, your questions, whatever. We don't have all the answers, and that's why we collectively as a team are here, including you as coaches, to get input to the management team to make it the best experience we can for everybody in attendance.
Yep, and Steve, I just want to say that the WISP management team out there is really excited to have us back. They're doing a lot to engage the community out there in Garrett County, so looking forward to a great Winter Games.
Ron, as the venue director, anything you'd like to add?
Not really. Offline, I've got a couple of questions at some point for you and Ryan, but not really. I'm good.
Sounds good.
okay.
All right.
I don't see any hands up, don't see any other notes. So thank you so very much. Really appreciate it. And we will see, I assume we'll see some of you potentially on the 11th, assuming conditions are conducive to having snowshoeing at the on snow training opportunity at Whitetail. And if not, then we'll see hopefully all of you at the Winter Games. So
Again,
you so
thanks
much.
everyone.